On this edition of the Ben Garcia Show, Bradley Beal has officially moved to the bench. Why it should have been done long ago. And the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if you know, they just wrapped up their season last night. Let's talk about it all next.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Woo. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. We are starting this new thing here at the Ben Garcia Show. We're basically now, you guys saw it last night, I'm kind of getting used to all of this streaming upside and all the things that is just beyond me, right? So really quickly, before I jump into what is all just insane news going in from the Arizona Cardinals landscape to what is the Phoenix Suns landscape, and we're going to get to the Suns in just a minute here on the Ben Garcia Show. I just want to say that this is something that I will be doing from now on in lieu of shows where I'm creating off the air and putting things out. From now on, I will likely just be streaming and doing things like this. So bear with me as we continue to get through what is, not exactly a trying time, but what can be a little difficult, me learning yet another thing. And you guys are obviously with me now learning on the fly. So let's just jump right into it. So last night, it kind of came as a shock to a lot of people, but not necessarily to me. Chris Haynes basically put out that Bradley Beal would be ultimately moving to the Phoenix Suns bench. And to me, that was I was surprised. But before we get into it, let's see exactly what Chris Haynes had to say yesterday, talking about that being one Bradley Beal.
I see pretty significant news out of Phoenix. Sources relayed to me that Bradley Beal and Yusuf Nurkic will be removed from the start lineup starting Monday at Philadelphia. And in their place will be starting rookie Ryan Dunn and Mason Plumlee. Now, there's also tension in that locker room. I'm told certain players are unsure of their roles and frustrated with how they're being used. And the coaching staff, they're still trying to figure things out. So this situation, it will be something to monitor moving forward. But as of right now, Bradley Beal, Yusuf Nurkic moved to the bench. Mason Plumlee and Ryan Dunn, starters.
You know, that was something last night that came as a shock to a lot of people. And that was mostly because Bradley Beal at this point has become a good soldier for the Suns team. He has done everything and more to sacrifice. And here's kind of where I go in this aspect. And, you know, as I kind of answer some live chats as I'm talking about this, I do not play fantasy basketball, Aaron, so I'd be the wrong person to ask when it comes to that. However, I definitely wouldn't ever drop a player like Bradley Beal, and here's why. Here's why the Phoenix Suns going ahead and putting Bradley Beal on the bench, I believe, can save their season. And I think it goes very plainly like this. I have been the leader of the Bradley Beal to the bench, I feel like, crowd since last March at this point. Bradley Beal has clearly been a square peg in a round hole for this Phoenix Suns team for, months now, years at this point. And it was to the thing where I was kind of basically explaining to everyone else, which was, this guy just doesn't fit here. It's too much redundancy in the offense. And if someone's going to move to the bench, we know who it's going to be. It's got to be Bradley Beal. And it came to me last year as an epiphany of basically this. When the Phoenix Suns were going up against the Sacramento Kings last year, it was late in the season, and the Suns came back and they beat the Kings. It was that insane rally where this team decided they're just going to reel off 25 straight points or something insane and win the game. But in that game, Malik Monk went nuclear. A superb sixth man of the year candidate, a guy who has the ability to just cook and score 30 points off the bench whenever he wants to, really. And I saw that. And I said, oh my God, that's Bradley Beal's role. Bradley Beal, I don't think is a washed player. I know a lot of people are very quick to throw around the W word, that being washed of one Bradley Beal, and it's just not fair to Bradley Beal. Just because he has been asked to sacrifice a lot of what he does doesn't make the guy washed. In fact, I would think defensively he's one of their better players this year, which isn't a great thing for a team's defense that is bottom third in the league. But the only way this team actually gets it figured out was this. I don't like that it necessarily took this long. We are 30-plus games into the season, but it clearly wasn't working for Bradley Beal. So here's why I believe it's going to work for this team going forward, putting Bradley Beal to the bench, putting Kevin Durant and Devin Booker in the starting lineup. As mentioned before, it's just too much redundancy. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, they do too much of the same thing. And it was something that really didn't cross my mind when they got Bradley Beal here. They're three unselfish stars. I thought it would work out. The problem is, it didn't work out. And now you see all the percentages of if this team can make the playoffs, where it can go from here. What does it look like? Well, listen, now we're here. We've made our bed. Now we're lying in it. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, we know work well together. We've seen it before in the playoffs. We've seen it before in the regular season for stretches. When those three guys are in the lineup, the ball just sticks in their hands for too long. It's mano-a-mano. It's hero ball. It's just not going to work. And I applaud Coach Budenholzer for knowing it's not going to work. If you allow Bradley Beal, and we saw the report as well with Chris Haynes, people are frustrated with their roles. Yeah, no crap. No one is surprised that the Bradley Beal thing hasn't worked out perfectly over the past couple of weeks. And with that being true, no one knows exactly what their role is. But if you move Bradley Beal to the bench and you take out everything from his mind, everything from his plate, hey, you got to be a good defender, but not just a good defender. You got to be able to play well with others. You can't let the ball stick in your hands for long stretches. You can't allow that to happen. And it's nauseating. Truly it is for this team, where a guy in Bradley Beal who's been asked to do so much and sacrifice so much, he then be asked to now go to the bench, focus on nothing but being Washington Wizards Bradley Beal. That, I believe, is what the best version of Bradley Beal is. Come off the bench, cook. It's why I was the leader of this charge. In July, I got called a crazy person for saying Monte Morris. This was before Tyus Jones was signed to the Suns. Otherwise, Tyus Jones, of course, start, and then Bradley Beal, go to the bench. But my whole thing was Monte Morris, put him to the bench, insert Bradley Beal into the starting lineup. That is the best version of the Phoenix Suns. You ask him to go to the bench, ask him to cook, ask him not to worry about anything else than just playing clearly defense. Come be a good soldier off the bench. You're still going to play 35 minutes a night. It's where this whole idea of, well, Bradley Beal makes $50 million a year. You're not going to have him come off the bench. Why? Is there a clause in a contract or is there a clause in the CBA that says if you make a certain amount of money, you have to be in the starting lineup? No. This was about pride at this point. And what I would like to see what the Phoenix Suns did is talk to Brad, say, this is the best position for you to succeed. This is what you have to do for us as a team. Are you willing to do that? And credit to Bradley Beal, man. I know it is so easy to go after Beal. And I expected this. Whether if the big three succeeds or doesn't succeed or not, this was 2 years ago at this point. It was very plainly, I knew exactly who was going to take the brunt of the beating, and that was always going to be Beal. Because when you have these trios, these big threes, whether it's the Celtics years ago or the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Miami Heat with LeBron James, Kevin Love always took the biggest beating. Chris Bosh always took the biggest beating. The lesser of the three stars always takes the biggest beating. And I do feel for Bradley Beal to some extent, because it's not fair to him to have to be able to sacrifice yet again. But credit to him. And this is the best version of the Phoenix Suns. Now, if you are able to bring Beal off the bench and just have him be Washington Wizards Bradley Beal, I think it is a slam dunk. Pardon the pun. I think it makes a lot of sense for this Suns team. Now you can insert a lineup of Mason Plumlee, although I don't think is going to be the guy long-term at the center position. Then you can insert a guy, Kevin Durant, Ryan Dunn, Devin Booker, Tyus Jones, and that allows you to get bigger, better defensively, and everyone has clear defined roles. Now, instead of Kevin Durant shooting the basketball and potentially missing a shot or making a shot or whatever it looks like, everyone has a clear defined role. Durant isn't worried about, I took the last 3 shots, now I got to make sure I get it to Beal. That's not how it's going to work with this team now. Now they have clear, defined roles on what they are. And it's why it's going to work. This is going to... Listen, I don't think anything at this point can make the Suns championship contenders, barring a huge trade, Jimmy Butler, whatever it is, right? But at this point, the only way to make this team a viable team in the West and a playoff team, this is what it looked like. Move Beal to the bench. Allow Kevin Durant and Devin Booker to have clear defined roles, exactly what they want to do. Mid-range jumpers, shooting threes. Mason Plumlee's the big, although I don't think that that's going to be there forever. I do believe that they'll make a move in that department. Tyus Jones is the point guard. Ryan Dunn. You get better defensively in the starting lineup, inserting Ryan Dunn. You get more cohesion, and I believe better chemistry because everyone knows exactly what their clear defined role is. And it was absolutely the right move for the Suns to move Bradley Beal to the bench. But even more so, it is very admiring to at least me and giving credit to Bradley Beal, who has continued to sacrifice week in, week out, month in, month out. It's why I think he deserves a lot more credit than the guy gets. It feels like everyone just beats up on the guy because he's the third wheel, and no one's going to really go after Devin Booker because he's the golden boy, and no one's going to go after Kevin Durant because he's just still kind of awesome. So, credit to the Phoenix Suns for making this move. Seriously, credit to the Phoenix Suns. I think it has the real legs to potentially save the Phoenix Suns season. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, clear defined roles in the starting lineup, mid-range jumpers, three-point shots, Tyus Jones being the clear defined point guard, kicking the ball over to those two guys, Mason Plumlee, Ryan Dunn, understanding that they need to get boards, that they need to play better defense. The issue with this Suns team is no one had clear defined roles. And now everyone knows exactly what they need to be. And that includes Bradley Beal. He's going to come off the bench. He's going to be Washington Wizards Bradley Beal. He's going to be a playmaker. And it's going to work. I believe it's going to, even though he's going to the bench, I believe it's going to up his scoring intake. And at the end of games, guys, there's no rule against bringing Bradley Beal off the bench. There's no rules. He can still end games. And it's going to work. The Suns team is going to get better because Bradley Beal goes to the bench. Everyone's going to have clear defined roles. Everyone's going to know exactly what they are. But even better, it's not going to be 3 stars who are too redundant in their identity of what they do as basketball players. Mostly mid-range jumpers. And Beal doesn't have to worry about taking too many shots. Or, I should have kicked it over to Devin Booker in the corner instead of him missing a layup. He's not going to do that with Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen. Beal knows he's the guy. All Beal has ever known is being the guy. That's what he knew with the Wizards. He was the guy for the last 5 years with the Washington Wizards. Coming off the bench, he gets to be that Malik Monk role that works so well with the Sacramento Kings and be able to be that guy, to be the spark off the bench for this team. And I think it's going to work tremendously. I cannot believe it took this long to move Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns bench after what we saw the first 30 games of the season. Because it just wasn't working. So, credit to Budenholzer. Credit to Beal for taking that role because it's hard. For some reason, in the NBA, there's this idea that starters and bench players are way down here. And I don't think that is truly fair to a Suns team that, at this point, has been dealing with a ton of issues with chemistry-wise. And it just kind of continues to go and relay into this team exactly what they need to be. They needed an identity, and this helps this Suns team have a true identity. So, Beal to the bench, Suns' new starting five. I'm excited to see how that game goes at this point this season. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, if you want more of that kind of talk of the Phoenix Suns as well, me and my guy Brendan Clean will do more of that on Locked On Phoenix Suns later tonight. If you guys don't know, I'm also the host of that show as well. So with that being said, let's jump right over to our next topic, the Arizona Cardinals. At this point in the season, it's finally over. The Cardinal season is finally over, and it just also feels like it almost feels like it's mercifully over, this Arizona Cardinals season. But let's hear what JG had to say on the season as a whole, where he's taking this. How do you express this Suns team? I'm sorry, how do you express or analyze this Arizona Cardinals season? So here's what JG had to say.
Obviously, I'm not going to get in the future, but didn't accomplish what we wanted to accomplish this year, and that stings. But I'm proud of them. I really am. They fought, they battled. We had a lot of guys in the lineup. Roles are changing, and to put that kind of effort against the San Francisco 49ers, a well-coached, tough, physical team, I thought that was pretty cool to see. So I'm proud of them, and I thank them for that. And it's good to see us close out this year at home with a win.
Yeah, there was something yesterday that I thought was really interesting about the Arizona Cardinals yesterday, and that really truly being of their effort. As hard as I've been on this Cardinals team over the past couple of weeks, and I think deservedly so, this team was 6-4 through 10 weeks. They had to have been better. They weren't. And so let's kind of talk about it. Let's kind of talk about it from this perspective. The one saving grace I thought of yesterday, which was JG has been preaching this idea of culture, that they're changing the mold, and we'll hear Kyler Murray talk about that in just a second as well. They're changing everything they're doing, right? They're going from this incompetent organization to this team that now does things differently. Well, I thought what was very commendable about this Cardinals team yesterday is there was no quit. To Jonathan Gannon's point, he should thank them because they fell off a cliff. Yesterday was a clear show of this team still believes in everything Jonathan Gannon is preaching and doing. Because it would have been very easy to mail it in yesterday. Who cares? You're not making the playoffs. That's not what happened. I was very impressed with the Arizona Cardinals' effort yesterday. Although I didn't care if they won. In fact, if you've been watching this show long enough, and I know some of you have been, I didn't care at all. In fact, I wanted them to lose. I thought it was nonsense to win games that don't matter. If you believe in the culture thing, cool. But I was never really on that. The Arizona Cardinals, the last 2 weeks, even though they struggled offensively against the Rams to score in the end zone, after yesterday's offensive explosion where Kyler Murray was just awesome, after nearly the ball hitting off Trey McBride's helmet to win that game, it shows that they still have true belief in their head coach, and that being of one, Jonathan Gannon. And it's very commendable. If you are still giving it as much effort as you've been giving it all year in games that, call what it is, doesn't matter. I find that impressive. That will to continue to go out there and give it your best effort, that's great. Kyler Murray could have mailed it in yesterday. Kyler Murray, and I'll get to this in a second, didn't earn any more points with me or lose any points. I don't think there could have been anything bad that happened yesterday. Could have lost to Josh Dobbs. I don't care. The game doesn't matter. Kyler showed up. Marvin Harrison Jr. showed up. Everyone on this team came out ready to get a dub. And they annihilated the San Francisco 49ers. The game was never close. After halftime, it was a clear shellacking on who the better team was. And it's their first time going ahead and sweeping the 49ers since 2021. And that means something. That Niners team, yeah, they're injury-riddled, but so are the Cardinals. They didn't have either of their tackles yesterday. Guys get injured. Go play. The San Francisco 49ers looked like a team ready for the regular season to end. The Arizona Cardinals looked like a team that wanted to show the world that they still believe in their head coach, that they still believe in what they're preaching, and that they're frustrated with how the season ended, but they're not going to let that control everything else when it comes to what this Cardinal season could have been. So I was really surprised yesterday. I was worried the Arizona Cardinals would lose and everyone would be pitchforks and knives out for this Cardinals team and going after them for whatever it is, right? But they didn't. It showed they still believe in their head coach. They still believe in this culture. It seems like to me they still really believe in their quarterback. So with that being said, yesterday, Kyler Murray also spoke into the Cardinals season and trying to change the culture. And the issue with Kyler Murray's quotes, before I play it for you really quickly, is sometimes I feel like he needs to add, and that begins with me, and that ends with me, and pointing the finger at himself a little more. Not that what he's doing is bad. I just think it could be a little bit more directed at him, given the fact that this Cardinals season did not go the way anyone wanted it to go to end the season. So here's Kyler Murray really quickly.
For sure. I'm going into year 7, this season, which is insane. But still young, but, like, been in the playoffs once. I feel like, no, that's not what I'm used to. It's not, I'm getting used to it, but, like, I'm trying to change that narrative, trying to change that, change the culture around this place, and I think that's, I believe in what we're doing. I believe that's where we're headed.
Yesterday really showed that they did believe where they were going and where they were headed. But there's this idea, and I saw it yesterday. It's so frustrating sometimes with the Arizona Cardinals fanboys because what we saw was a clear offensive explosion from Kyler Murray. And I feel like everyone that has had a gripe with Kyler in whatever way it looks like and however you feel about that being one Kyler Murray, whether you're a pro Kyler guy or you're against Kyler, I feel like the logical Kyler Murray people like myself who have questioned his play over the past couple of weeks, yesterday didn't win me over anymore. And it didn't lose me anything either. Kyler was 25 for 35 yesterday. 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, a passer rating of 128, and rushed the ball for 22 yards. And I don't mean to sound like I'm piling on Kyler Murray. I don't mean to make it feel like I'm just continuously going after the guy, because that's not what I'm trying to do. I want Kyler to succeed. But it would be malpractice of me to not say what I want to say. And that's very plainly this. Kyler Murray was awesome yesterday. 4 touchdowns, a lot of passing yards, good completion percentage, 25 for 35 throwing the ball, 22 yards rushing. All of that is well and great. But I knew that already. I know how good Kyler Murray can be when the game doesn't matter. I know how good Kyler Murray can be when there's not huge implications. So when Kyler says, you're trying to change the culture around here, listen, Kyler, not from a leadership perspective. I think personally, he has changed all of that for the better. I think Kyler has been a tremendous leader this year, outside of the, some sulking on the sidelines, but whatever. A lot of quarterbacks do that in the NFL. But I think for me, what I think is so prominent is I saw it from a couple of Kyler Murray fanboys. Like, oh, you still want to replace him after yesterday's game? Or look at these statistics. He is an awesome NFL quarterback. Anyone that wants to draft a quarterback is stupid. When the argument has never been, can Kyler Murray play well? The argument is simply still, can Kyler Murray play well when the lights are the brightest? And he's never done that. So yesterday shouldn't sway you one way or the other. This is not an argument against Kyler Murray being the Cardinals' starting quarterback next year. But I think it's disingenuous to point to yesterday and say, no, this team, this Kyler Murray, this guy is a top 5 quarterback. We knew that. I couldn't care less about this game. I couldn't care less about his performance. What I wanted to see was a couple of weeks ago against the Seahawks, against the Minnesota Vikings, against the Patriots. What has been an injury-plagued couple of weeks, for that being of one Kyler Murray, he played really good, clean football. And he's been really good the past 2 weeks. Yeah, he struggled in the red zone offensively with this team, but in the Rams game, but he's been pretty good. Rock solid. But once again, the question is, can Kyler Murray play his best football when the lights are the brightest? And it is indisputable at this point. Up until right now, January 6, 2025, Kyler Murray can't do that. Doesn't mean he can't ever do that. It doesn't mean it's not somewhat Drew Petzing's fault. It doesn't mean that there isn't some other extenuating circumstances that Kyler Murray, is contributing to. But that's the question. I can't point to yesterday's statistics and say, man, this guy he's got it. He's the guy that we've been looking for, our franchise quarterback savior. So I thought it was pretty disingenuous yesterday to point to that game and say, Kyler Murray is the guy. Kyler has to be more consistent. I've been beating this drum for the past few weeks. It's hard for me to bring this up in a different light, but it is what it is. Kyler Murray has to be more consistent. Kyler Murray has to be better when games matter. And so although he was a good player yesterday, and although I had fun watching him, and it does kind of suck to see your team go or leave at this point when the playoffs are starting next week, I got to hold Kyler accountable. Kyler Murray was good yesterday, but he has to be a more consistent player, especially in games that matter. So that's where I was for Kyler yesterday. Before I wrap up the show, so give me about 10 more minutes on this. I want to hit this again once more. As I'm getting used to the live streaming, and if you're watching this right now, I appreciate it. It's kind of hard to gather my thoughts. This is all different for me, right? Because normally I'm shooting this stuff up. It's all pre-recorded. I'm doing things a little bit differently. I'm producing it. I've got a stream deck over here. It's kind of hard to get all of your thoughts and ducks in a row. And I did this again last night. Because when people say this season was a success, And they doubled their win total. They went from 4 wins to 8 wins, and they showed some promise, and they looked good towards the end of the season offensively. In a vacuum, the Arizona Cardinals season was a success. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season, hey, this team is going to be about 2 games short of a playoff spot. They're going to play meaningful games up until week 16, and they're going to double their win total, I would have said, yeah, you're right. That was a successful season. But what people fail to add to that is this very important caveat. If you were to tell me this Cardinals season is a success because they won 8 games and they doubled their win total, and you told me that before the season started, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. But then you added, hey, the Cardinals are going to double their win total, but they're going to go 6-4 through 10 weeks. They're going to look awesome for 4 straight games. They're going to look like they're a shoo-in for the playoffs. They're going to look like the best team in the division, but they're going to collapse and fail. If I said all that, if I went from they doubled their win total, it's a successful season, and you said, hey, if I told you that at the beginning of the season, you would take that. Yes, I would. But if you then told me, yeah, so they're going to double their win total, but they're going to go 6-4, and then they're going to finish 2-6 down the stretch, or whatever it is, 2-5 down the stretch is what that should be. If you told me they're going to go 8-9, but they're going to finish 2-5 down the stretch, and they're going to completely squander a chance to be in the playoffs and be division champs for the first time in Kyler Murray's career, I would then say, well, then that's a little bit of a failure. Overall, the season on its own, if you look at it from 50,000 feet, yes, the season was a success. But I cannot just turn a blind eye to what happened late in the season. You finish 2-5 down the stretch. You completely blow it against the Seattle Seahawks. You completely blow it against the Minnesota Vikings. You had a chance to not only be a double-digit win team, but almost like an 11, 12-win team at times. But you blew it. And then it leads to the same issues that we have with this team over the past half decade. They do this, and then when the season starts to really matter, they completely nosedive. We can't have it. We can't have that. So if you want to trot around that this season was a success because they doubled their win total and they finished the season with a W, you go right ahead and do that. I'm not going to stop the fanboys from fanboying. That's your job. My job is to be honest and is to be authentic and to tell you exactly what I saw. And I got to be honest with you. This team blew it. They were 6-4 through 10 weeks in the driver's seat for the division. And not just Kyler. JG had multiple blunders as a head coach. Thinking of the Vikings game right off the top of my head. The defense against the Carolina Panthers gave up 30-plus points. And then, of course, Kyler Murray as well. Threw bad interception after bad interception. Maybe it's just growing pains. And you could argue that. I wouldn't be against it. Maybe it is just growing pains for this team that they're just going to get better and it's going to take a little bit of time. But at this point, I just got to be honest with you guys. It's kind of hard for me to get there when I saw exactly what happened for the past half decade with this team. So, yes. Overall, a successful season. And the Arizona Cardinals come out with 8 wins on the season, and that's good for them. But overall, I can't just act like I didn't see what I didn't see. And I think it's just copium at this point for the Arizona Cardinals fanboys who are upset because they felt they went from we could actually make the playoffs to the last 2 weeks of the season don't matter. And it's just crazy to me that that's where we're at with this Arizona Cardinals team. So that's all I have for you guys today at this point. You know, I know I didn't do an amazing job reading off some of the chats for you guys, but it is tough out here to have to go ahead and do everything on my own while trying to give you all my, obnoxious takes of what exactly this team needed to be. But overall, I appreciate you guys jumping in and joining me. I'm going to absolutely be doing this in the mornings. I'm unsure exactly a schedule of what I want to get to with this team, but overall, with this podcast, but overall, we are doing things a little bit differently here on the Ben Garcia Show. We are going to continue to start live streaming, doing things a little bit differently. So appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate you guys watching. And I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. I will have something again tomorrow in the morning. I'm unsure what exactly that looks like in the morning, but I wanted to get out, continue to try this out. I'm going to fall on my face multiple times doing this, but I'm doing something completely differently. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I'm Benjamin Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.